Welcome everybody to day 3 of a fabulous motorsport weekend at the Autodromo Internazionale di Mugello for the first ever rounds of the Prototype Cup Europe, taking over from a couple of successful seasons when it was known as the Prototype Cup Germany, but it's now spreading its wings for 2026 to take us to 4 fabulous circuits. After Mugello, we have quite a break before we're racing for the first time actually in Creventic history at the Nürburgring on the Grand Prix circuit. Still an epic part of the whole Nordschleife site there, but not using places like Hatzenbach and the Dottinger Hohe, but instead the full Grand Prix circuit, which is a Grade 1 track. That'll be at the start of July. Then we go to Monza at the end of July, start of August, and Spa-Francorchamps will complete the season at the start of September, when that is also the same weekend that the the Porsche 992 Endurance Cup descends upon the venue, the 7-kilometre circuit in the Ardennes Forest for a Saturday race. But there'll be a couple of Prototype Cup Europe races along the way. It's another fairly chilly start here in Italy with some cloud cover as well. We're just scraping 5 degrees Celsius. Johnny Palmer and Joe Bradley, though, in this cracking place to witness motor racing. This circuit at 5.2 kilometres, Joe, with just about every corner you could possibly dream of.
Yeah, it is a beautiful place to be, Johnny. It may be very, very cold there, barely 5 degrees, so everyone with their big, thick anoraks and winter coats down there on the grid about to get going. Beautiful track here at Mugello. It's one of those flowing tracks. There's not really any really low-speed stuff, but there's plenty of high-speed stuff. All of the slower corners, it being a predominantly motorcycle track, the slow corners tend to be kind of wide and sweeping, so it's a lovely flow, and it's all about momentum and keeping that momentum in the car, not scrubbing off too much speed with too much sideways momentum, scrubbing your speed. It's a race for 7 cars on the grid. We've always made that we've always made that doctrine of only needing 2 cars to make a race, Johnny. We had 7 yesterday, and yesterday's race 1 was quite an exciting thing. It wasn't done until it was done, and what a great drive from Maxim Dirks, who finally took the win. But it wasn't made easy for him, was it? He had to work very, very hard for the win yesterday, and I expect exactly the same sort of race for us today. Same drivers, same cars, and as we go in the cockpit with one of the Hellbergs, I think that was Linus Hellberg, and there's his brother Emil. These 2 drivers showing good pace yesterday and just learning their craft in these very technical prototype cars. Good start. We're on the road to Le Mans is how we would describe these cars. It's certainly from GT Racing, this would be your first port of call, the LMP3 spec car. We've got 2 models out there on the grid, the Ligier GS P35, which we are looking at the moment, and that's the Decane, the pink livery Decane from the BWT Mucker Motorsport, a very experienced team running those 2 cars out there on the grid for Tobias Clausen and Marcus Pommer. We'll have a look at the grid very shortly, Johnny, because we've just whisked down the grid from our camera there. Yeah, well, yesterday's result, actually on paper, seems like a very dominant affair for Maxime Dirks, winning in the end by 17.5 seconds after a decent length of race at 30 laps. But as you say, that doesn't really tell the full story, because Tobias Clausen, the 17-year-old from Denmark, was kind of beating himself up a little bit after the flag yesterday, saying, I just wasn't quick enough. I mean, we felt like he actually had put in a brilliantly defensive drive, was doing all the right things, trying to slow down Maxime Dirks, because sometimes you have to fess up and say, well, there is a car that's quicker than me on the day. The team might be able to do a little bit of adjustment to the car overnight to quicken Clausen up, but he did a very good job in holding not only Dirks up, who eventually wriggled through, but then you had Jakob Erlbacher in the number 11 GMS team car that he shares with Valentino Catalano. And Jakob, in the end, couldn't get by Clausen. So Clausen did a good job to hang on to second, together with his teammate, Matthijs Pluschkel. And whereas Pluschkel started the number 8 car yesterday, Tobias Clausen will get an opportunity to do that. In all the 2-driver cars,
If you took a race start yesterday, then it's the other driver that will start today. And it's the other driver that actually did the qualifying 2 days ago as well, because there were 2 qualifying sessions, 15 minutes each. And each of the 2 drivers gets an opportunity to do 1 qualifying session. And that's the reason why the grid looks very different for race 2, putting Theo Mikouris on pole position, because he was just about the fastest driver of anybody that's been in a prototype this weekend. Compare that to Don Bastian, who Theo shares with, who is generally considered a kind of midfield runner, and made a few errors yesterday as well, did Don Bastian, who, again, was annoyed with himself, and Theo Mikouris had the job of trying to pick up the pieces after the Frenchman-American's stint. So we got Mikouris, who sounds very Cypriot, and that's the reason, well, part of the reason for that is because his dad's from Cyprus, but he actually lives in the UK, from Bedford originally, and he'll start alongside yesterday's winner, Maxime Diric. Then you've got Marcus Pommer and Emil Hellberg. Now, one of the 2 Swedish brothers who have a very smart winter clothing brand away from the track. They're both bronze drivers, and they're both driving independently this weekend. So Marcus Pommer and Emil Hellberg will be on the second row. Then it's Linus Hellberg, Emil's brother, and Tobias Clausen starting the number 8 car, and Jakob Erlbacher will start at the rear of the field in car number 11, sharing that car with Valentino Catalano. Now, yesterday we had 2 formation laps.
Same thing, Johnny.
It is. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you've read that.
It's because of the quite unseasonal cold temperatures. I mean, we've come to Mugello many times at this time of the year, and I've got to say, I've never known it be as cold as it is. I mean, we've got a forecast that will barely get today's ambient temperature above 10 degrees, even though the sun's going to come out. And even we've seen a forecast that potentially is going to bring us rain this afternoon. That's not going to affect these cars here, though. They are going to be racing for the next 55 minutes, and like we've just said, 2 rolling laps, 2 formation laps, and that's to enable the drivers to get some heat into those tyres. They're starting off very cold indeed. Tyres and brakes are the thing that the focus will be on these 2 rolling laps, getting some tyre heat into the carcass of the tyre, not just across the tread. And we see drivers weaving around just to get some energy into those tyres and get some heat. They'll be using the brakes as well, and just bringing the heat temperature up so that when they do get towards turn 1 for their first competitive brake application, they will actually have a brake and the car will actually stop as much as they want them to. More importantly though, Johnny, we need the tyre underneath these drivers. We've got quite a technical race car that we're about to watch. Both the Ligier and the Dequin are prototypes in every respect of the word, and a great starter prototype, starter formula, where we've seen so many times in the European Le Mans series, the Road to Le Mans series as well, is it's a proven path towards getting yourself involved in the high-end prototype championships, such as the World Endurance Championship, the IMSA Sports Car Series across in the States, and indeed the Asian Le Mans Series and European Le Mans Series that are very healthy these days. And this Prototype Cup Europe is a really great idea, and we hope to see it burgeoning. We might have a 7-car grid now, but I'd like to think that it'll become attractive to those teams and drivers who have got their eyes set on that kind of career path.
Interestingly, the number 74 Team Virage car that starts from pole position for today's race doesn't have Don Bastian listed along with Theo Mikouris. I'd be very surprised if they've taken the decision to leave Don out of the car for this weekend. But on the penalty sheet, and remember that there are different amounts of pit stop penalty that you have to take. By the way, it takes a certain amount of time, clearly, to go from the pit lane entry road to the pit lane exit road. And I'm having a good chat last night with Steve Burns, who is the race director for the Radicals. I've known Steve for a few years, actually, from officiating. He's officiated lots of racing in the UK, still does that as well, but has got a very smart job this year, full-time, with Creventic, and that's not only with the support races. He's focusing on Radicals this weekend as the sort of main race director, but he's also assisting your own Steenhouse for the 12-hour race as well. So he's assistant race director for the big one, and it's got a support race category for this weekend to look after as well. Now, he told me that at 40 kilometers per hour, if you enter pit road, go to that speed, and then exit pit road, that takes you 34 seconds without stopping. And there'll be a set amount of time that these cars have to be in the pit road, which will be that kind of drive-through time plus an extra delta. But then if you're a silver driver on your own, you get an extra 25 seconds in some cases bolted to that time, and that is the case for Theo Mercouris. Incidentally, the race clock time has started to tick down because at the start of the second formation lap, we have officially started the race, even though you're not permitted to overtake. The safety car will come into pit road, though, at the end of this lap and begin the race proper.
The reason why we do that, Johnny, is start the clock on the second formation lap, which is in addition to what the original plan was, and that's purely brought about by, as I said, the low ambient temperature. It's to do with fueling. We pretty much run these cars brim full to get them through this 55-minute race, add in the time of the extra formation lap, and just to be on the safe side, we start the clock so that there's not that extra lap of fuel needed for these cars. They're not exactly frugal on they're a race car, so of course they're not going to be frugal on their fuel consumption. We have got the cars from line of stern formation into 2x2 with Theo Mercouris on that, with that team Virage, the number 74 on the pole position. He will dictate the pace as they come through the final turn here, named Buccini. And the second row of the grid, Marcus Pommer, Emil Hellberg, Linus Hellberg, Tobias Clausen, Jakob Erlbacher, I should say, with yesterday's winner, Maxim Diric, alongside Maxim in the red and the black car with the red trim, the yellow and black car on the left of the screen there. That's Theo Mercouris. He's going to have the primary line into turn one. As they get the get-go, Johnny, I think we're going green.
Yeah, so fans of things like the Michelin Le Mans Cup and also the European Le Mans Series will recognise those Team Virage colours, the yellow, little bit flashes of orange and black, and Mercouris hasn't necessarily got the best getaway there. Maxime Diric judged as marginally the race leader as they hit the control line. Can Mercouris break late enough? Diric is going to go around the outside and actually take the race lead, and also Mercouris is going to lose out potentially on another position, because here comes the Muka Motorsport car of Marcus Pommer to the inside line of Luco, but then the next right-hander, the inside line should be favoured by Mercouris, and it is. So they were side by side for second and third, and Mercouris thought, well, if I keep my car on the right-hand side here, eventually the corners will favour my side of the road, and so it's proven. However, from a net perspective, he's lost one position from pole back to second, and Maxime Diric knows how to certainly drive well defensively. This is going to be a much more intense fight, I'm going to suggest, though. Mercouris maybe just building the tyre temperature and making sure that everything is within the operating window before he starts to truly attack. Or is it that Maxime Diric can actually start to pull away? Now, he is going to find this tough, because Mercouris, as he proved in yesterday's race, is one of the quickest drivers we have in prototypes this weekend.
It was Marcus Pommer that grabbed my attention. He's the driver in the Muka Motorsport, the BWT pink liveried car, currently in third place. He was totally caught out breaking into turn one and locking the wheels. Did very well to contain the car and stay on the track. He then hung around the outside of Theo Mercouris, who will feel robbed, I think, from that pole position as we head down to the final turn. Pommer looking very racy indeed, Johnny. He hung on the outside of Mercouris, and then Theo Mercouris, as you described, just sat there knowing he was going to have the primary line coming out of the of turn three. Here we go then, one lap completed. It is definitely that black with red trim of Aust Motorsport in the lead in the form of Maxime Diric, and you can see he's not happy with his tyre temps there.
No.
Weaving a little bit just to add a little bit of temp.
Well, that gives you an idea of how comfortable he is out front, though, because he's got the ability to do that and not risk losing a position into San Donato down at turn 1, because Theomakuris is quite a bit further back. My only concern about the start, and I'm sure just as a matter of course, the start will be looked at to make sure it was as neat and tidy as possible. Everybody in the driver's briefing is told to drive directly through the grid hatching. So if you're on the left-hand side of the grid, you have to drive straight down the left-hand side of the grid markings, and likewise on the right-hand side. But at the start of the race, Maxime Diric was marginally ahead of Theomakuris, and I could tell that from the timing system. It might be fine, because if they've been given the instruction in the driver's briefing that as soon as the red lights go out, you're racing, so any overtakes from that point on are absolutely fine, then Maxime Diric will be okay. But if he needed to stay behind Theomakuris until they'd crossed the line, Maxime was ahead. We have had a spin. That's down the hill into Savelli corner, and the first of the two Arrabbiatas, and that is Jakob Erbacher, who had such a good race yesterday, trying to hunt down Tobias Clausen, Joe.
I've got to say, it's a little bit out of character for Jakob Erbacher to have that lurid spin. Hard to judge. I mean, he's dropped way back off the tail of this field now. He started at the back of the grid, caught out. I don't think those tyres are quite where these drivers need them to be quite yet, Johnny. We saw the leader, Diric, weaving around on the straight there just to add a little bit of temperature, just get it, speed the process up. And Jakob Erbacher being caught out there, that was on the way down the hill through Casanova and then the left-hander. And then on towards the Arrabbiata. He'd clearly been off track and was gathering himself up. Hopefully Jakob will get his composure back and get back on with the job in hand. Now, as we enter lap 4, we've had 3 laps under our belt. I'd like to think that we've got enough tyre pressure and tyre temperature in those cars to maybe give a little bit more confidence to these drivers, where they can now start to think about pushing on and maybe even challenging the car in front, pushing towards the car in front. But that's a big ask, isn't it? It's a big ask for these drivers up front, because they're all very, very capable.
One of the reasons why Maxime Diric has set off for the horizon compared to Theomakuris is because he was a winner yesterday, and the regulations say that if you win a race, you then carry a success penalty of 6 seconds into the next race. So not only has he got to serve an extra 25 because he's a silver and driving on his own, you add a further 6 seconds, which will total, when it's all the various pit stop stoppages are added together, that's actually just north of 2 minutes that Maxime Diric is going to have to sit in the pit lane. 2 minutes and 1 second. And it's a penalty that Theomakuris does not carry. So therefore, Makuris is going to gain there or thereabouts 6 seconds when we get to the pit stop cycle. And Makuris really has to just stay in touch. He was a second behind at the start of this lap. It's a lot closer than that this time around, exiting Buccini at the final corner.
Yeah, he's really pushing. As I said, now he's got those tyres underneath him. He can feel a bit more confident, can Theomakuris. And we've certainly closed the gap to the leader. It's gone from a full second, Johnny, to just under 6/10. So that's 4/10. He'll be getting a little bit of aero wash as he gets under the rear wing of Maxime Diric, but that explains why Diric has gone off like a bat out of hell. He knows he's got to make up that 6 second, at least that 6 second deficit that he picked up for being so successful yesterday. So we'll see, and that is all done in the pit stop, by the way, isn't it? So we'll see the cars when the pit stop window opens, which is, well, it's
20 minutes in.
20 minutes in, isn't it? For 10 minutes. That's how long the window stays open. And it's a mandatory stop. You haven't got a choice. You've got to serve within that pit window. We're a little bit off that. And I think before we get there, Johnny, Makuris is going to be right with him soon.
Actually, I'll remind myself, it's not quite exactly 20 minutes. This was the 55-minute race, wasn't it? The prototype race? Yeah. So in the 55-minute race, unlike the Radicals, which is 50 minutes, we're talking about a 10-minute pit stop window that begins 22 minutes into the race and ends 32 minutes into the race. So the numbers are slightly more awkward, only because we're racing for a total of 55 minutes. When we get to Radicals, that is from 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and therefore slightly easy to remember. But I did think Theomakuris would be able to match his pace with Maxime Diric. He was just taking things easy in the early stages, ensuring that his Michelin tyres he could start to lean on them, that the heating cycle had been done correctly, and now Maxime Diric is going to really struggle to shake Theo Mercouris. There might be an opportunity to pounce, depending on Mercouris' exit out of Bouchinet corner. Can he make the slipstream count? He's maybe just a bit too far back. But this 1.1 kilometre straight, with a couple of kinks in it, but you keep your foot flat to the boards, will present an opportunity. Maybe on the next lap into San Donato. Mercouris looks to be very good on the brakes as well.
I was going to say it's going to be a very, very brave move to get down the inside of Maxime Diric under the brake, or on the brakes going into a corner. I think it's going to be a very much planned situation for Theo Mercouris. He's making notes now, isn't he? He's followed him round for the last couple of laps, and within 0.4 of a second now, the gap. It's when he gets any closer, though, he's going to start getting some aero wash, and that's going to start affect the handling of his Ligier. This is a total Ligier battle. The two cars at the front of this field, Ligier GSP 325s, that are leading the field round. The first of the Decanes is the Marcus Pommer car that still remains in third place. Emil Hellberg for Allez Racing, he's in fourth, he's in a Ligier. Tobias Clausen, the other Decane in the field, he is in fifth place. Allez Racing's Linus Hellberg, brother of Emil, he is in sixth. And the recovering Jakob Erlbacher for GMS, he is in seventh, and after that spin, trying to get his composure back. But this is turning into a proper race, Johnny. As I've said, we might only have a 7-car grid, but we've got 2 cars at the front of this field for top honours here, and it really looks intense.
And the other big question mark for me is there a plan to leave Dom Bastien out of this number 74 car for race 2 this weekend? Because, as I say, I can't see Dom's name in the driver 2 slot. So have they decided overnight that actually Dom is better off learning the car at a different venue, perhaps? It's a reasonably long season with 6 races to follow after this, and if they are planning to take in the Nürburgring, and in fact, let's just pay close attention to what's going to happen at San Donato, because Mercouris was closer again here. No opportunity, though, to dive bomb Maxime Diric. But yes, with 2 races at the Nürburgring to come at the start of July, and then 2 races at Monza and Spa-Francorchamps, maybe Dom Bastien is going to take a back seat for today's race. I only say that because Theo Mercouris is carrying the maximum penalty that you do as a solo single driver for the forthcoming pit stop, and that is 25 seconds. It's not just the leading car after that won the race that carries a success penalty either, because both, well, all the first place, the second place and the third place finishing cars from yesterday have a success penalty. Maxime Diric, as yesterday's winner, gets 6 extra seconds. Tobias Clausen and Mattis Plushkill, when they finish second, they get 4 seconds for that as an extra to serve. And the GMS team of Valentino Catalano and Jakob Erlbacher, 2 extra seconds. So it's 6, 4 and 2 as the success penalties. Correntaio corner, we've had almost 15 minutes and it's still absolutely nose to tail, Joe. Yeah, it's brilliant stuff, this. This is a bit of a research mission for Theo Mercouris in the yellow liveried front end of that Ligier, following Maxime Diric around, just looking at ways. He's got a bit more he's a bit quicker on the entry to Bouchinet. He has then got a slot in behind and sit under the rear wing of Maxime Diric. He's maybe picking up a bit of a slipstream here. It's a 1.1 kilometre long straight here past the pits. It's a straight that isn't straight, of course. It's completely flat out, but it does twist and wind. This is the brave move that we think is maybe a little bit out of reach, and that's purely down to Maxime Diric being absolutely spot on and on the limit of that braking efficiency in that lead car. Mercouris follows him through the left-hander at Lucco, and then Poggio Secco down the hill towards Materazzi and Borgio San Lorenzo, and then it's completely downhill. The very fast entry to Casanova, which is what's coming next for these drivers. It's very hard to follow really close when you were trying to find your turning points and your braking points for this section of track here. And then this, perhaps the bravest of them all, the Arrabbiata 1 and 2. You've got to be so precise here, and these cars absolutely flat chat through the second of the Arrabbiatas and up and over the brow. This is where Mercouris will want to get right with our leading car and will want to stay with him
He knows he's got a 6-second advantage when it comes to pit stops. So maybe the plan is not to make too much of a risk and maybe just sit there on the rear wing of the leading Ligier from Aust Motorsport and just get the lead in safe conditions under that penalty. It's not a penalty, it's more of a handicap, isn't it? It's more of a success handicap,
I mean,
rather than a penalty.
It's called a success penalty, but it can be considered a way of equalising the field, because if the thing the championship don't want is the same driver in generally the same car to be winning every single race week in, week out, and it's a way of pegging back those that are very successful, just to make it more interesting for the fans. This is surely Theo Mercouris' best effort then to take the race lead, and in fairness, Maxime Diric is giving him racing room. Can Diric stay to the outside line? He can't, because there's no grip out there. As we mentioned, it's 5 degrees Celsius and really only a single line out there at this time of the morning. We also bear in mind how much racing took place yesterday for the first half of the 12 hours, so there will be quite a few marbles out on that exit of San Donato. And Mercouris, it feels like he rehearsed that a couple of times and finally gets the move done.
He's clearly listening to our commentary, Johnny, because I think I just said, is he going to sit under the rear wing and take the lead during the pit stop phase for that 6-second extra advantage that he has? And he thought, no, boys, I'm going to do it in an entertaining fashion, and I'm going to be very brave. I'm going to go down the inside into the first turn at San Donato and go on the brakes. And you could see the cars on both of those cars, for Maxim and Theo, both cars squirming around, scrabbling for grip in the braking element or going into that corner. But now we can see just how much Theo Mercouris has been stifled, because look at the gap he's pulled immediately. He's pulling immediately away from Maxim Diric, and by the time we get around to the pit lane, or the pit straight I should say, and cross the line, I think we're going to have a gap of almost a second there. Visually it looks like it's a chunk of time, and that's just in one lap. Here they come, let's see what it is then. So change of lead at the top of the timing screen. Theo Mercouris crosses the line for Team Virage, and then in second place Maxim Diric, and it's 1.6 seconds, would you believe, Johnny, in one lap. That's the gap that Theo has pulled.
Thank you, by the way, to Ori Lichtenberg of Creventic, who is also the Prototype Cup Europe Series coordinator. He's managed to confirm to me, well, I sent him a question saying, are we expecting to see Dom Bastien in the 74 car for this race? And the answer is no. So there's been a revised entry list. This car was entered as a 2-driver lineup yesterday, but Dom Bastien, I'm sure, feels he needs a bit more coaching, a few more practice laps before he's in a race format. So Theo Mercouris will be a solo driver for race 2 of the Prototype Cup Europe, and that is the reason why he's been given the maximum penalty without the success element of it, as being a solo silver driver. So he got 25 extra seconds to serve when we do get to the pit stop phase. That's the same as Maxime Diric, but remember that's the 6-second difference because Diric won yesterday's race. And the worst case scenario here is if it now swings 6 seconds in the other direction, for example, for Maxime Diric. It's looking very much like it might, because Diric is already going to be pegged back. And it looks an uphill task now to get back in front of Theo Mercouris. It was a fascinating fight in the early stages, because I hadn't expected Maxime Diric to open up the gap that he did in the early stage, but I think that was just Theo Mercouris keeping his powder dry, getting used to the current track conditions. He is well in the groove now.
Absolutely lapping. First car into the 1:44s gives him the fastest lap of the race, just about to cross the line now. And we follow the car via our drone pilot, who's doing an absolutely sterling job to give us that little bit of a different perspective here. Here's the outbreak, though. Perhaps created from coming out of the final turn at Buccine, allowed Mercouris to get alongside, which then, when you are picking your braking point, is a little bit easier to stay on the inside and the optimum line into the corner. But still a very, very brave. Maximum speed there, top gear, maximum speed, going on the brakes and picking your braking spot. It's Maxim Diric a very quick driver, and himself the last of the late breakers, but Theo Mercouris making that move, and then around the rest of the lap being able to show just what an advantage that driver setup in that Team Virage outfit is. Another 1 minute 44 lap for Theo. He's the only driver to have dipped into the 44s. We've got a personal best for Maxim Diric as well with a 1:45.4. So lots of green lap times being shown. So nobody really taking their time, Johnny. Everybody pretty much, the whole field, still pushing on and increasing their lap times and quickening their lap times as we progress.
I would imagine that the grip levels are very different from yesterday, even though we're racing just an hour before yesterday's race, but it felt like we had a bit more sunshine on the circuit, whereas today the more measured approach is the sensible one for me, with an 8:40 start, and then gradually you can quicken the pace as each driver becomes more confident and is aware of how the tyres are reacting. But far better to just be fairly conservative for the first 2 or 3 laps and then start to push. That feels like it's been the approach for Theo Mercouris. And Maxime Diric, as Mercouris has upped the pace, hasn't necessarily been able to react quite as well as he had wished he might. And there will have been some thinking overnight, because all of a sudden, for the rest of the field, they've got to contend with Theo Mercouris not only doing the opening stint, but also the second stint as well, with the revised entry list issued yesterday evening. So Mercouris is for sure the big favourite to take this race win, but he's got to keep things neat and tidy. Also now a question mark as to precisely when the cars are going to pit, because in 5 seconds, my reckoning, we will have had 22 minutes of this race, 11 laps completed, and that will see, yep, there goes the hooter in the background from our commentary box. You may not be able to hear it, but the hooter indicates to everybody that the pit lane window has effectively opened now. And if you're coming out of Bucine corner in the not too distant future, you can legitimately come into pit road and do your mandatory stop. For those cars and teams that have 2 drivers, a driver change is necessary. Otherwise, though, the current driver stays in the car, but has to stay in the pit lane for a set amount of time, purely as a basic. And then we have these extra penalty amounts, which are determined by whether you're a solo silver driver or whether you have 2 silvers in your car. The bronze and silver combination is one to think about as well, although we now actually no longer have that now that Don Bastian is sitting out the rest of the weekend. The rest of our duos are all silver. So Klaus and Plushkel, both silver, the Danish and German combination. We also have the double German combo of Catalano and Elbacher, they're both silver. And Mads Larsen, who did the opening stint yesterday with Marcus Pommer, they've switched around, their driving duties have switched around, but they are also silvers as well. And as a double silver, you get a slight advantage over a single silver driver, because it's considered a distinct advantage if you're keeping your driver on board with all the track knowledge they will have built up. So there's actually a 5-second difference, 20 extra seconds for a double silver, 25 extra seconds if you're solo. And here is one of the first driver changes that I'm talking about, Joe. Car number 8 that finished second yesterday. They're not having it all their own way today, though. No, they're into the pits from 6th place there. Tobias Clausen hasn't really been able to make any kind of progress beyond Emil Hellberg, who he's been circulating behind. Another pit caller is Jakob Erlbacher in from 7th. So we've got a change of driver going on that BWT Mucker Motorsport car number 8. That will be Tobias Clausen handing over to Matej Plushkel, who, if you remember, Johnny, back to yesterday's race, Plushkel was very dominant in the early stages of this race. So it's going to be interesting to see if Plushkel can make any kind of impression on the rest of this race. Still plenty of time, half an hour. And I think we've got Sarah down there in the pit lane, right on the spot there, Sarah.
Tobias, slightly different race so far compared to yesterday. I mean, you finished second yesterday. Can you tell us how the track is differing today, or what's feeling different in the car?
Well, we made some small setup changes, and as well, it's a bit colder today. So I think it was very important on the 2 formation laps to get the heat into the tires because the temperature is very cold today.
Tell us more about the setup changes. What changes have you made?
Yeah, we made some slight changes. I don't think I can say more than that. But yeah, we hope it helped. Felt good now, so yeah, we'll see what Mattis can do.
Let's see what Mattis can do. Is there anything you've said to him in terms of what's feeling in the car to sort of help him out in the second stint?
No, not really. I think he drove the whole last year, so he has the experience in the car, and yeah, we could also see that yesterday in his first stint.
Well, let's see in the next 30 minutes how he goes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but so Mattis is considered at the moment the quicker of the 2 drivers, only because Tobias is very new to this form of racing. So I think the speed of car number 8 will quicken. I don't think anybody's going to catch Theo Mercouris and potentially Maxime Diric either, but there is the scope for the number 8 car to jump ahead of the 2 Allez Racing Ligiers, driven by the Hellberg brothers. And the Hellberg brothers are getting more used to these type of cars as well, but they're both bronze rated, whereas Mattis Plushkel, who's just taken over the number 8 car, and Tobias, who we've just heard from, are both silver. So on the kind of balance of play, you would expect the number 8 car to be able to advance a little bit, but we haven't yet seen a pit stop for either of the Allez cars. So it will take a bit of time for them to find one another on the track, but that'll be a battle to look out for in the remaining half an hour, Joe.
I'll keep an eye on the lap times as well from that number 8 now that the primary driver, no disrespect to Tobias, he's done a cracking job. He's brought the car home in one piece, which is the primary objective in this kind of racing, handing over into his teammate. We know how quick Plushkel can drive. And here we are now. He's on his out lap while we look down the field. It's a very, very quick pit stop window here, and with a lap of almost 2 minutes, that window can easily ebb away from you. So the teams have got to be very organised. The communications between the teams in the pits and their driver has to be absolutely on par with the top level of any kind of motorsport. And we don't want to miss that pit window. We want to optimise our race. And to be honest, Johnny, at this level, it's all about gaining experience for a lot of these drivers on their way through the ranks and getting involved in a higher level of perhaps international motorsport. This is how they're finding their feet, really, finding their grounding in racing prototypes for the first time. Linus Hellberg there for Allez Racing, the number 43, just going on his way. Linus currently in 5th place. No indication of who's going to pit next. The teams are, getting ready, because that pit window of 10 minutes, as I've said, can quickly ebb away from you. So the majority of the cars, I would see, into the pits in at least the next 2, maximum 3 laps before we get to close the pit window.
Yeah, because it opened. Well, we started with 55 minutes, so 33 minutes to go. We'll have seen it opening, therefore with 23 minutes to go, and that's useful because we've got a clock counting down to the checkered flag in the centre of our screen. So that's only 3.5 more minutes of the pit window being open.
That has ebbed away quicker than I thought. So that's going to be in the next lap or so.
Yeah.
Before we lose the pit window. The next of the motorsport cars are in, and this one's Marcus Pommer. After that very aggressive start there, Marcus was absolutely on it, wasn't he? Blocking those tyres going into turn 1 and then being very, very aggressive around that first lap. He settled into a strong 3rd place there. He's about to hand over the number 18 to his teammate, which will be Mads Larsen. Marcus Pommer, the German driver. Mads Larsen from Denmark, who is the silver driver in that line. In fact, they're both silver drivers, aren't they, Pommer and Larsen? So we shouldn't really see any kind of difference in performance. I can hear Sarah in what has become a very, very busy pit lane with prototypes all over the place now, with the 2 Allez Motorsport cars in together, the number 48 and the number 43 in together. They're not exactly double stacking, though, are they? There's no tyre changes or anything going on.
They do each have a pit stall themselves, but I'm just wondering whether, you know, the car in front had a slight issue, the number 48. If the 48 had an issue, would that compromise the route out of the pit lane for the 43? They might have just said, well, they were far enough apart on the track, so they're going to be arriving and then departing at enough of an interval, and that's precisely what happened. By the way, the man on the stopwatch to the left of your shot a second ago, that wasn't Vincent Voss, but you could very easily be distracted to think that it was, because he had the classic flat cap on that we often see from the Belgian, with the specs as well, and looked like he was a very sort of official chap, but that'll be somebody down at Alley Racing. And in this type of weather, coolish conditions on a Sunday morning, I kind of like that sort of Peaky Blinders flat cap fare.
Well, you're from the West Midlands, aren't you?
Well,
so
that's true as well. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's your home culture. Flat caps and strange accents.
But I'm not sure whether Vincent Voss of WRT has ever been to the West Midlands. Maybe he has. Maybe that's where. Maybe he's a big Peaky Blinders fan, and that's where he got the idea to wear one of those in the first place. Theo Mercouris has come in from the race lead in number 74 for Team Virage. The Aust Motorsport car of Maxime Diric is also in. And we were speculating yesterday precisely why a certain Marco Werner is here this weekend, a former factory prototype Audi driver, winner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I think on 3 separate occasions, Marco Werner. And I put a few feelers out yesterday to find out precisely who he might be coaching. It did look like Maxime Diric was the most likely candidate.
He seemed very happy to be under that podium where Maxime Diric was taking the plaudits of the team and the crowd for that win yesterday. So Marco Werner, I haven't spotted his face in the background, but the number 3 now just soaking up that pit stop time, and he will be let out as the last car, Johnny, to leave the pit lane. That was the 6 extra seconds for the success of yesterday. He has got not really any opportunity to get ahead of that car there, the yellow and black car from Team Virage. Theo Mercouris gets out and will continue to lead this race, I would think.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see how Mercouris compares to both Linus and Emil Hellberg's pit stops, because they will have brought back 20 seconds. So it's a 20-second gain comparatively for the 2 bronze solo drivers and the Mercouris car. And 20 seconds is 20 seconds. It's a significant chunk of time. Mercouris has probably spent most of his first stint trying to eat out that kind of a gap. I'm just trying to work out whether this is a real-time position now. Mercouris is on an out lap, so it will take a bit of time for the timing screen now to settle down, but the pit window is officially closed, as we'd expected it would do, at 23 minutes to go, and we can head back to Sarah in the pits.
Quick word with Marcus Pommer. You jumped out the car. You were up in second. I think it dropped down to third as you came into the pits. Good start out here today.
Yes, the start was great. I think I was on P1 for some meters, but I had a outside line and it's very cold, so it was slippery. I couldn't hold my position, went back to P3. Yeah, and from this moment on, I tried to follow the leaders, tried to manage the tires for my teammate, and yeah, gave him the car on P3.
And talk about the differences of today. Is it more suiting your driving style? It's a little bit colder. What does that do to the car?
Yeah, so today it's very cold, so I've never experienced this in my more than 300 races. So it was very cold, like on ice, so the first 2-3 laps were really hard to drive, so I was just managing to keep the car on the track, put the traction control on. Normally we switch it off, so it was more about to survive on track.
Well, let's have a look at what happens with your teammate in the car right up to the end of the race. Thank you so much for having a chat.
Marcus Pommer getting out of the other WRT, the other BWT car rather. I've got WRT on the brain now, having mentioned Vincent Voss, who's not here this weekend. Mads Larsson takes over the BWT Muka Motorsport car, feeding back into 4th position, therefore. And yeah, I was right. Theo Mercouris up against Emil Hellberg is a battle for the lead of the race now. It's a silver driver versus a bronze, so I'm expecting that scrap to really only go in one direction, i.e. Mercurius to stretch his legs again. But as he rejoined, he had Emil Hellberg, who'd already completed his first out lap, so his tyres were back up to temperature, and there was a good opportunity actually for the relatively inexperienced Swede to take the fight to Theo Mercurius. Mercurius has weathered that storm though now, and I'll expect that gap of 1.8 seconds to be a fair bit more by the end of this particular lap.
Yeah, it's the race for second and third actually that has certainly got my attention.
Yeah.
Maxim Diric, who had that 6-second success penalty to soak up in the pit lane during that pit stop phase. He's 11 seconds behind Emil Hellberg as they come through to complete what will be, where's my lap count there? 18 laps now on the board for these cars. Emil Hellberg across the line. Gap's gone out to 3 seconds now to the leader Mercurius. So as you suspected, Johnny, that's the case there. We expect Theo Mercurius to continue to extend his lead. The gap is down to 10.4 seconds, so it's not coming down massively. And with just under 20 minutes remaining, I think he's got time. A 10-second gap. The lap times are 1 minute 46.3 or 1 minute 45.3. Taking a second a lap. So in 10 laps time, Diric is going to be right under the rear wing of the second place Emil Hellberg car, and that's the two cars that are behind this one there, which is our leader Theo Mercurius.
The two Hellberg Alley Racing cars then have needed to spend a significantly less amount of time in the pits compared to even Maxime Diric. Diric had the longest pit stop to serve at 2 minutes and 1 second, whereas the two Swedish boys needed only to spend 95 seconds in the pits, or 1 minute and 35 if you prefer. So that's almost a full 30-second gain for the two bronze Hellberg brothers. And Maxime Diric, therefore, has this now 10-second gap to try and eat into in the remaining 18 minutes. Still highly possible that Maxime Diric can finish second in this race, but it does appear that the race win is a little bit out of his grasp. Not accepting any slight drama for Theo Mercurius, of course. So all things being equal, Mercurius is comfortably on the road to a race victory after that overnight decision to take Dom Bastien out of the driver combination. Let's hope that Dom is keen to do a bit more prototype racing before the season is out with Team Virage. And I'm sure Virage will be trying to make that a two-driver lineup for the rest of the season, as well as Mercurius just has a slight squirm applying the power coming out of San Donato, but he mopped it up nicely. And there is Hellberg in second position, but slightly more distant.
And Diric has taken another second out of that gap to second place behind this car here. Emil Hellberg being caught by a second a lap by Maxim Diric. The House Motorsport driver now come into the pits in second place. I don't think he had the pace really to challenge Theo Mercurius. Once Mercurius got by, within one lap, he put 1.6 seconds on the Diric's car. So Theo Mercurius has been certainly the class of the field this morning, and he will continue to drive the way he's driving. He's going to keep extending that lead out to 5 seconds, as you said, Johnny. The gap between second and third, though, down to 9.3, and that's coming down by a second a lap now. So if we get a chance, we'll try and pick up that third place car, the black with the red nose section on that House Motorsport car, chasing down Emil Hellberg for second place.
Diric versus Larson for third and fourth is getting slightly more distant as well. Now, how did their pit stops compare? Diric, as I mentioned, needed to spend 2 minutes and 1 second during the mid-race pit stop. The number 18 car, which is a silver combination. We heard from Marcus Pommer, who did the opening stint, and they, as a total, needed to spend 1 minute and 50 seconds. So 11 seconds the difference. However, Maxime Diric's opening stint has negated that entirely, and also he's now built up a further 14 seconds over Mads Larsen, who has taken charge of the number 18 car for the second half of the race. We're heading towards the latter third of this second race of the weekend for the Prototype Cup Europe. The other thing to note is that the team manager of both of the Alley racing cars, 43 and 48, are being reported to the race director, or being asked to report to the race director after the race regarding the pit stop procedure. So I hope that's not too serious a problem, but the team manager of Alley Racing being told to report to the race director, but after this particular race though. And now car number 8 and 43, their minimum pit stop reference times were being looked at, but that is a no further action now. So they were obviously checking to make sure that each car had spent the right amount of time in the pit lane, and that minimum stop time has been looked at, and it appears that everything is fine.
So this is the third place car. Yesterday's winner, Maxim Diric, who is catching second place Emil Hellberg by a second a lap. The gap is down to 8.3 seconds. Hellberg is dropping time to the leader, Theo Makuris. So this is where the race is at, Johnny. This is the difference between a third step on the podium and a second step on the podium here, up for grabs with Maxim Diric. And there, he can just see the tail of the Hellberg car. That's the Hellberg car just coming out of the final turn now. And then Maxim Diric in the black with the red nose of Aus Motorsport just chasing him down. So the gap was 8.3 seconds. Let's see what it is this time by as they cross the line. It is 6.3, so 2 seconds that time, Johnny. He speeded up the process, and it's not going to be long. With a good 14 minutes on the clock, we are going to see a challenge for that second place, which is great stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, Maxim's best lap of the race, so he is definitely turning up the wick, feeling that the increased amount of points that you get for a second place finish, I think it's 20 points you get for second, so well worth snatching those on a day where you've got to accept you've not got the quickest car in the field. 3 cars together here. This is the BWT Muka Motorsport sandwich, and Mads Larsson leading Linus Hellberg and Mattis Plushkel. But I would expect that the Muka Motorsport cars are quicker, generally speaking, than Linus Hellberg. But Hellberg's doing a good job at the moment in holding off Mattis Plushkel. Plushkel took pole position for the first race of the season, the first ever race in the Prototype Cup Europe. So began at the start, at the front of the grid yesterday. And Plushkel, therefore, we know, has much enjoyment of this particular track. It's also interesting to compare the Duquesne versus the Ligier pace, 2 very different manufacturers involved in the prototypes this year.
This is great racing. Whenever you get involved, and Hellberg there just beginning to get a bit rattled there, just locking a wheel, got a bit rattled on the curb on the outside the corner. Now he comes under massive pressure from Plushkel, and there, that cost him dearly because he lost momentum down towards the hairpin at Corinthians, and the BWT, the pink liveried car, now making the move on what was Hellberg. A slight mistake there, costing him dearly as we leave that 3-car battle. That was great, 3 cars. Whenever you get involved in a 3-car train like that, you are having an absolute ball of a race there. It doesn't matter where you come, or it shouldn't. Well, it won't be. It won't matter in a week's time. It'll matter straight after the race because you'll feel as though you've let yourself down. But here is that 3-car train now. 2 pink cars from BWT Muka Motorsport, with the Alley Racing of Linus Hellberg now having a slot in behind, and it will be Plushkel who will try to get by his teammate Mads Larsson in the car ahead of him. And already, Johnny, he's right under the rear wing of Larsson. Larsson's going to have to get the textbook out on how to defend at Mugello to keep that car behind him.
Even though these 2 cars are clearly from the same awning, they are run from the same outfit, BWT Muka Motorsport. There won't be any real team orders other than don't hit each other. But because they're independently funded, they're totally different projects, then Mads Larsson and Mattis Plushkel, I'm sure, will be entirely free to race, particularly with 11 minutes still to go. And the interesting thing from our perspective is that yesterday proved that Plushkel's probably a bit quicker than Mads Larsson. but he's got to find a way through, and he's definitely got to do it safely, considering that those at Mugello Motorsport are paying very close attention. They want 2 straight Duquesnes to take back to their headquarters at the end of this weekend.
Mugello is the sort of track where you can kind of, what I would say, is subtly defend, where you knock down the inside, massively down the inside. You're just positioning the car in the middle of the track, makes the car that's following you very, very hard to pass. And it's going to usually, as we saw, for instance, Theo McCurris, how long did he have to follow Maxim Dirks around lap after lap after lap before he finally found a way through by coming out of this corner here, Buccini, which is where they are now with the Plushgel car. Hard to judge whether or not he's got more momentum. He's trying to get under the rear wing of his teammate Larson so he can get a bit of slipstream. But the team there looking on and not necessarily enjoying this race, but their hearts will be in their mouth with their teammates, relying upon their teammates, looking like a move. Oh, and that was a beautiful outbreaking maneuver. He's got the textbook out on how to overtake into San Donato hairpin, and that's pulled off a beautiful textbook move into the first turn here. So a change of position, and just look at this, Johnny.
Well, one that wasn't going to be fought, really, by Mads Larsen. I think he realised that the run for Plushkill was so good, he'd be a bit stupid to try and overly defend that, particularly against a fellow Mugello Motorsport car. So he just opened the steering a little bit. I actually thought that was to take a wider line into the corner and give him a better exit out of San Donato in an attempt to repay the favour. But sometimes you just got to say, do you know what? Matthijs Plushkell's just got the bit between his teeth this weekend. He's obviously very much at home in this at this track in Mugello, despite Plushkell actually having a nationality of German. Yes, he's German, sharing with a Danish driver, Tobias Clausen. But everybody's second home is Italy, and possibly here at Mugello as well. They've really enjoyed travelling here, and it is so important to get that good exit out of Buccini corner, turn 15, and whether Mads just couldn't get the power down quite as readily as Matthijs Plushkell, or Plushkell just has the better line and has had all the weekend. But the game was up really for Mads Larsen, and he deliberately did not fight that. Slotting into the wheel tracks then of his teammate, and we have a change for 4th and 5th. Meanwhile, Maxime Diric is only 3 and a bit seconds off the tail of Emil Hellberg, but time is just starting to slip away a little bit now. 8.5 minutes to go for the Belgian to catch the Swedish racer.
And Hellberg, I've got to say, in that second place, he's been lapping consistently in the mid-45s. 1:45.7 was his last one, and that's a really strong, consistent way of going about your racing. The 43, Linus Hellberg, into the pits, and that's not for any kind of pit stop other than a problem. We are well outside the pit stop window, so that's a problem for the LA Racing number 43. That's put him out of this race potentially, and certainly at the back of this field. As the team go to work, it looks like they're changing the right front wheel and tyre on that car, so whether or not that's a flat spot maybe. We've seen these cars very easy to overbrake and flat spot the tyres, and it looks like that's the case, Johnny. He's maybe flat spotted that tyre on the right front, giving himself a vibration, and the team, or the driver indeed, deciding that discretion being the better part of valor, he's going to bring that car in and change the tyre and then get on with enjoying the drive here at Mugello. The leader is through. He's got a gap of, well, it was 14 seconds. It's now 15.7. This is the battle for second, though, as Hellberg comes, and that's the reason. Look at that. That's a massive flat spot. That's more than one lock up there. He's gone straight through the canvas and caused a puncture. So we've got that was my perception being proved to be correct there for Linus Hellberg. Meanwhile, his brother Emil is about to come under massive pressure now, as the gap has gone down to 2.7 seconds, and with just under 7 minutes, oh, we've got a bit of teamwork maybe going to come into play. I would like to think there is no Dick Dastardly tactics going to come in, be employed there, and the number 43 thankfully keeps well out of the way, doesn't want anything to do with this, and wishes his brother good luck there as Emil Hellberg continues to fend off the ever more advancing Maxim Diric there, just coming out of that corner now towards the Arabiatas, and if anything, just negotiating that back marker, Johnny, has caused Diric some time. We'll check that out when they cross the line. 2.7 seconds the gap last time.
Well, the cynic might have initially said that LA Racing knew precisely what they were doing there in releasing Linus Hellberg into the heat of the battle that involved his brother, who's trying to defend in second place, and the chasing Maxime Diric. But actually, Linus Hellberg was incredibly gentlemanly there, realised the quicker car wanted to get through and practically stopped on the exit of Borgo San Lorenzo corner. There will have just been a little bit of a delay, as you mentioned, though. That was unavoidable, I would suggest, and Maxime Diric is going to have to put that out of his mind as quickly as possible, and again focus the crosshair on the rear of Emil Hellberg's car. So Hellberg, the car that we see from the drone, away now on the grid hatchings, and then the second of those machines exiting Bucine corner is the chasing Maxime Diric. So here with the yellow wing mirrors is Emil Hellberg. He's appeared to be the quicker of the two brothers all weekend long, but neither of them have been able to necessarily consistently lap at the same speed as Maxime Diric, yesterday's race winner. But Diric is a silver, we must remember, whereas Hellberg, the two Hellbergs, are still fairly new to this.
Well, the gap was 2.7 seconds between these two cars after 25 laps. It was exactly 2.7 seconds after 26 laps. So no progress whatsoever being made there from that third place car of Maxime Diric. He's now got back onto programme, and he will be trying all he can to close that gap. You can see the car in front of him now, and that always helps. That helps with a bit of motivation. It helps when you can see the car in front of you coming back towards you. What's a bit demoralising is if you're trying your hardest and driving your hardest and the car in front of you is not coming towards you, then you can start creeping into the world of making mistakes. Maxime Diric, though, not anywhere near that realm, and continuing to focus, hitting his marks, hitting his braking points, hitting his turn in, looking very clean, just consistent lapping here. And it will be the second step of the podium he's got his eye on. He's got that car of Hellberg in front of him through Bucine. Doesn't look like he's made a massive amount of ground here, Johnny, and maybe that's down to Emil Hellberg responding. A 1:45.9 from both cars last time by. Let's see what they are now as Hellberg crosses the line. 1:45.4 and 1:45.3. Gaps come down. No, it's come down a couple of hundredths. Yeah.
Barely worth mentioning. It's still 2.7 seconds, and I'm impressed that Emil Hellberg was able to do a green sector time on that lap. The first sector was his best of the race so far. Wasn't able to get a new fastest lap of the race for his car and himself, because he's on the solo drive this weekend, but might have been a personal best. Just shows that the pressure's not really getting to him. He's still able to find a bit of speed here and there. Maxime Diric will be grateful that the road between he and the car he's chasing is clear of any errant traffic currently. Down the hill through Savelli, 3 minutes to go. And a lot of curb taken on the exit there of Maxime Diric. Again, an indication of how hard the Belgian is having to push. And through the two Arabiatas, the second of those is far more important. An acceleration zone, as you said a couple of times this weekend, helped, I suppose, by the fact that it's such a steep hill as well. So you can keep your foot flat and know that generally the car will stick, or you hope the car will stick. We have had a few moments through that second of the Arabiatas, not in this category, but elsewhere across the weekend. He is a bit closer this time, I think, Diric. Maybe only, again, by a couple of tenths of a second, and that will need to be increased, i.e. the gap that's coming down will need to be increasing for the last couple of laps. This won't be the final lap for the race leader, Theo Mercouris.
Two more, I think, Johnny. Two more laps of this.
So this one and the next. Yeah,
so let's see what the gap is exactly, or according to the stopwatch. It is 2 seconds, so he's taken 7 tenths out of Emil Hellberg's second place. 2 more laps, maybe. He's got to take a second a lap, and then he's got to find a way by. As we look at Mercouris there, he's got a gap of 17 seconds before the car that's about to appear over the brow here is Emil Hellberg. Hellberg being chased down. Here he comes, the black and yellow car being chased down by the black and red car. And Maxime Diric just staying focused here. You can't overdrive. You can feel the car coming towards you, but not quick enough, and be fully aware of how much race time is left. and it will be one more lap after this one by our calculation. We're not being shown any kind of indication that this is the final lap, so this is, in our estimation, the penultimate lap for these drivers as we go through Arrabbiata. And what can happen there, Johnny, is because it's a flat-out corner, you've still got to be very precise on the steering and position the car, clip your apex right there, because if you miss your apex and you're a couple of meters too wide, you will then end up across the curb on the exit and very likely to be visiting some gravel in somewhere, and then you're in the lap of the gods as to how you come out of that gravel. He would go, though, towards the end of this penultimate lap, Johnny, and the gap was 2 seconds. It looks like it's coming down ever so slightly, but for me, I would suggest not enough.
Yeah, when you commit to the turning point at Arrabbiata 2 and the apex then on your right-hand side, you can't see the exit because it's way up the hill and over the brow. Obviously, it's not changed from the previous lap, but nevertheless, you're sort of more reliant on muscle memory and the faith that the downforce will help you out. Once you've gone through there at a particular speed, then that will give you the confidence to continue to do it lap after lap in this 55-minute race. But there are these little mental hurdles that you've got to get over if you're early on in your racing career and not necessarily used to cars with this amount of downforce. So yes, the opportunities may be slipping through the fingers of Maxime Diric after such an excellent result yesterday. There's then an argument, I suppose, to say, well, the success system, the success penalty system has worked a treat in keeping the championship nice and even. What Creventic are looking to try and avoid is a double race winner each weekend. I think if Theo Mercouris had been in the number 74 car for all of yesterday's race, that might have been tough, because Theo is 17 seconds clear in this one. And even if he had a 6-second penalty in this race, he probably would have been able to still take the race win. This is some good action late on in the piece there between Mads Larsson and Valentino Catalano. And Catalano taking the Jake Hill line there around the outside of San Donato, giving him the inside line for the left-hander at Luco. And he gets the place as a result for GMS.
Yeah, right on the last lap there, up into 5th place, demoting Mads Larsson to 6th. But it's all about this driver here. Theo Mercouris will take the checkered flag and take race two of the season, race 2 of the weekend. The Team Virage driver being very, very dominant here this morning. He's driven the whole race, but I think a big round of applause for this driver here, Emil Hellberg. He was very composed under pressure. He had Maxime Diric in the black with red trim there, right behind him, and at the line it was 1.1 seconds, so time ran out for Diric. If you are Maxime Diric, you've got to be happy with that. A double podium weekend for Diric. Top a step of the podium yesterday, 3rd step of the podium today. That's a good championship points haul for him, looking forward to the rest of this Prototype Cup Europe season.
Hellberg held on in the closing stages, and Emil gets a 2nd place finish when you consider he's a solo bronze driver. That's a terrific result. Maxime Diric in 3rd, 4th position going to Mattis Plushkel, together with his teammate Tobias Clausen, and that will hopefully generate a smile on Tobias's face, because Plushkel gets the car into the top 4 ahead of Valentino Catalano with his last lap overtake on Mads Larsson to promote the GMS team's car, which was a podium finisher yesterday, up to 5th position. Mads Larsson closes things out in the 2nd BWT Muka Motorsport car in 6th, ahead of Ale Racing's Linus Hellberg. And Theo Mercouris, such is his advantage, will not be too far away from heading into the final sector now through Palagio. In fact, that's exactly where he is, exiting Palagio corner, Corantaio, and then the Bucine left-hand hairpin, and then he will be heading in the direction of Sarah Esser for hopefully a quick word, although I know that she's going to be very busy with a podium now as well, making sure the drivers are in the correct position for our podium presentation. The 2nd Prototype Europe Cup race is done and dusted, and that completes matters here at the Autodromo Internazionale di Mugello as a result. And it's a little bit of time off now without a race scheduled in April, May or June. The next time that the Prototype Cup Europe cars will be racing will be at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and Ori Lichtenberg ensuring me that we're going to have a couple of extra entrants at least for the Nürburgring round. And of course, plenty of months to generate a bit more interest as well. Here's the official result then. Take Dom Bastien out of that because of the adjusted entry list. It was a Theo Mercouris solo drive, and Team Virage number 74 taking a dominant race victory of over 18 seconds ahead of Emil Hellberg's Allez Racing Ligier. And remember, he's a bronze driver, but beating a number of silvers along the way. Third place is Maxime Diric, yesterday's winner for Aust Motorsport. So that's good from a consistency point of view, scoring points when you don't have the ideal race. BWT Muka Motorsport, Matthias Pluschkel and Tobias Clausen finish in fourth place ahead of Valentino Catalano and Catalano's teammate Jakob Erlbacher. In sixth place was Mads Larsson to close things out in the number 18 car with Marcus Pommer, and then Linus Hellberg completed the 7 runners. Theo Mercouris, very, very happy with that. Let's get straight to Sarah.
Theo, congratulations. You were saying to me yesterday that you were really enjoying this track. Tell me how it feels now that you've won here.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. I think we knew we had the pace to do it, so it was just sort of getting the job done today. But yeah, no, really good race. I love driving this track, so it was great to be back here and to get some nice push laps in towards the whole race.
And tell us some words on the car. How is it feeling for you?
Very sketchy. Yeah, it was a little bit less grippy today. We were struggling quite a lot with the grip. Not just us, everyone. I think the cold temperatures this morning really affected people. So yeah, it was a little bit sketchy, but a lot of fun.
And you talk about cold temperatures, there's loads of heat coming off of you. Feels good for me. It's freezing out here, but it must have been warm in the car. We'll see you up on the podium in a little bit. Congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
He's a top man. It feels like he's been around for a little while. Well, he has, actually, because he was a 2024 Ligier European Series champion. And the Ligier European Series considered the lowest rung on the ACO rules ladder, which then, if you do well in that championship, you can progress into the Michelin Le Mans Cup, the European Le Mans Series, and there's scope then to move on into the World Endurance Championship. Plenty of drivers have done that in the past. And the great thing about this year's Prototype Cup Europe is that it's now an official championship approved by the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, the organisers of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And the championship winning team do have a position reserved for them on the grid in next year's Michelin Le Mans Cup, which is a huge prize, because a championship campaign within the Le Mans Cup guarantees a single race these days, a single 3-hour race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans support package. So if that's not incentive enough, then, well, 6 other races as well as an event at Le Mans should be. So that's very much up for grabs over the remaining 6 races of this year's calendar. The Radicals are heading out onto the racetrack for their 50-minute race very shortly, and we will have that covered right here on the Creventic Motorsports TV channel, and also the Radio Show Limited network of channels. If you're maybe tuned to maybe doing a bit of driving or some ironing, some housework, and have got us on in the background on the radio, then it'll be a seamless move from one to the other as we go from Prototypes to Radicals. What are you laughing at?
Yeah, modern man, Johnny. Ironing. Do your ironing while listening to us.
I was picking a random task.
I do my own ironing.
Do you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was well trained.
You've got a wife, isn't that what wives are for?
Oh,
ironing.
God, no.
Can you still say that these days? I don't think you can.
I'm a highly trained ironer.
I'm going to be shot down for that.
You really are.
Possibly quite rightly so.
Nice working with you. Goodbye.
Yeah, indeed. So Sarah's busy organising the Prototype Cup Europe Podium, which we will get to very shortly. The cars make a great sight, though, beneath the podium, and they will soon be heading back to their trailers to be taken away. A lot of these cars expected, I presume, to be running in things like the Michelin Le Mans Cup this year, and actually the calendar for the Prototype Cup Europe has been neatly arranged to not clash with any of the Michelin Le Mans Cup meetings this year. I did initially think, oh, Nürburgring, that's going to be the same weekend as the European Le Mans Series at Imola, just up the road from here in Mugello. But that is the round this year that the Le Mans Cup actually sits out. It doesn't go to all of the ELMS meetings because it goes to Le Mans. So there has to be one ELMS meeting that it is not present at, and that will be Imola at the start of July. And that allows the Prototype Cup Europe to be in action, therefore, at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. So the Radicals, there's some stories to tell, by the way, regarding Radicals. So I'll wait till we actually get to that segment of our broadcast before I tell you about those. But the national flags are displayed, and here is Sarah Esser with the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podium for the Prototype Cup Europe Round 1 here in Mugello. Now, let's please put our hands together and welcome onto the podium, first of all, Theo Makuris from Team Virage. And we're going to be also welcoming Maxime Dirks from Aust Motorsport. And Emil Hellberg from Alley Racing. And again, Theo Makuris from Team Virage. And now time for the national anthem of the winning driver from Poland, Theo Makuris. Thank you for the national anthem of Poland. Now, to present the trophies, please welcome to the podium Tim Hoare, Michelin Motorsport Manager, and Ori Lichtenberg, Creventic Series Manager. And our third place winner is Maxime Dirks from Aust Motorsport. And in second place, we have Emil Hellberg from Alley Racing. And our winner for Prototype Cup Europe first round here in Mugello is Theo Makuris, Team Virage. He is also our junior winner here. And our trophy winner is Emil Hellberg from Alley Racing.
Theo Makuris, a winner in the Prototype Cup Europe. Don't forget, there are 6 races still to go. 2 at the Nürburgring at the start of July, Monza and Spa after that. Really looking forward to the weekend then at the start of July when we're next racing. And stay tuned to Creventic Motorsports T. The Radicals are next.